Before moving to a city, most people want to know, is it safe to live there? And so today we're going to go over Kansas City and we're going to show you how it compares to other cities and if it is actually safe in Kansas City. And then we're going to go over 5 of the safest areas, some of the best areas, and most asked about areas in Kansas City. And we're going to talk about those specifically.
Hey, Zach Morton, Max Jones, and we are local realtors in Kansas City. We've been helping people move here for over 20 years. So if you need help relocating to Kansas City, please reach out. You can give us a call, shoot us a text, drop us an email. But today we're going to talk about safety. So let's dig right in. All right, well, let's start with an overview of just general safety in Kansas City and kind of how it feels. We get this question a lot. In fact, Max and I were just talking about an email that came in just a couple days ago from somebody relocating and asking about Blue Springs and kind of what it felt like. So parents, anybody is concerned with safety. So we just want to give you a general idea of the city as a whole, how it feels. So we've got this awesome map that's kind of a heat map that we're going to pull up, and Max is going to kind of walk us through the kind of the hot areas for crime, because like any city, there's plenty of safe spots, but there's also places you don't want to go walking down dark alleys at night. And we'll point those out, and then we're going to go into some of the top neighborhoods for safety and just all in all, great spots to live.
Yeah, absolutely. So according to recent statistics, Kansas City's crime rate is 63 out of 1,000. Every 1/2 of a person out of 100 is going to experience crime. It's not a bad crime area. And it ranks number 87 compared to other cities in the United States.
Not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. Looks like Detroit, Michigan comes in at number 1, followed by Memphis, Tennessee, and Baltimore, Maryland. Petty crimes do occur, but overall the crime rate has been decreasing over the recent years. And from our experience, Kansas City is very safe. You can look at this map, and this is the whole Kansas City metro area that I have pulled up here. And we've got this 435 loop. We talk about it in a lot of our videos. It's a great highway to loop around Kansas City. And you can see here, this is the Northland. This is where we have our offices in the Northland. Very safe area, and that's considered Kansas City, Missouri. I think one thing that's important to know is that when we're talking about Kansas City, a lot of these areas, whether it's Blue Springs and Lee Summit or Liberty or Parkville or Overland Park, those are all the suburbs of Kansas City, but we lump it all together and call it all Kansas City, whether it's Kansas City, Kansas, which is on the west side this is the state line that runs right down here, and the river is part of the state line. So everything north of the river is Missouri, everything south of the river and on the west side is Kansas, and everything over here is Kansas City, Missouri. And so a lot of the statistics that we're going to be using today are for Kansas City, Missouri. And that can be a little deceiving because some of these areas that are outside the suburbs of the metro are some of the safest areas. So you can see this crime map, and there are some hot spots in here that we're going to go into details on in the video. I would just say that the crime map is kind of reflective of a population density map. And if you overlay the two, they're very similar. The more people that you have, the more crime, of course. So something to keep in mind. But
and these tend to also be in some of the older parts of the city. So you have some dilapidated housing or just a congestion of people. So I think that's typical with a lot of cities, but those are the hot spots, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, and I will say that, believe it or not, when we were doing our research, I was surprised to learn that Kansas City, Missouri ranks number 8 in the country for homicide. And that sounds really scary. That sounds pretty scary because there's a lot of cities in the United States. But that is something that you have to consider is they're talking not about the burbs. Most of that is in this dense area that you see the crimes. Out in the Blue Springs area or in the Northland, very low areas. If you were to take those statistically, they're probably some of the lowest. Something to consider there as you're doing your research on the internet is to know that Kansas City doesn't necessarily mean the whole metro area. It could be just a small part of Kansas City.
Statistics.
Yeah, you can shape statistics to paint the story however you want it to look. All right, up first on our list, neighborhood number 1, we've got Brookside.
Brookside is a popular neighborhood that comes to the top of a lot of the searches, and we hear a lot of people talking about.
So Brookside is just on the south side of Kansas City. the metro. Once you go over the river, you're heading down. You've got State Line right here. And essentially, Brookside will go from State Line, and it's just this little pocket just south of the plaza. When you go over Ward Parkway, you run into Brookside Boulevard, and it goes down to about Gregory, which I believe is right here. So it's this little pocket right here, and it is one of Kansas City's most hip and happening areas. But I will say that, as you can see in the map, if you go past Troost and you get over here towards 71 Highway, it is adjacent to a higher crime area. So some of that crime can kind of bleed over. And statistically speaking, Brookside is, of the areas that we're going to highlight, Brookside is one of the higher crime areas.
So yeah, but they do have a lot of neighborhood watches, and it's still a super walkable neighborhood. You just don't want to go too far to the east. So you just need to know that.
You can really lean on us for a lot of this stuff and the exact areas of Brookside. In fact, we have a video in the channel about Brookside specifically, where we go into the details and show you the exact streets.
But on the flip side of that too, the further you travel west, the better it gets as you get into the Kansas side. So, and then it gets to, I mean, you can see the colors there. It's not much lighter, and then you're in pretty much super low crime areas.
When you go into the statistics, this area is 6 times less likely to experience crime than over here, but there's still very low number of people per 100,000. Let's just say Brookside is you have out of 663 people out of 100,000 will be a victim of assault. That's very low. 663 out of 100,000 people. And then only 27 out of 100,000 people get murdered. One murder is too many, but 27 out of 100,000 is not that likely to happen.
And I always like the does it pass the walk down the street at night test, and I think Brookside does. I wouldn't go walking down over by 71 at night. Brookside feels pretty safe to me when I hang there. It's got a good vibe. It's got a nice nightlife.
Yeah, in general, you really don't want to go much east of Troost. Definitely much east of the Paseo. So yeah, as long as you stay west of that, it's great. Lots of nighttime nightlife and bars, and it's a fun place to live and hang out. As far as home prices go, let's dig into the statistics on home prices.
Yeah, it looks like over the last 12 months, we've had 65 homes sell, and we have an average sale price of $510,000. So pretty high sales price. It's a pretty sought after area. People seek it out and want to be there. When Kansas City on average is around that $350 price point, you got to pay a little more to get to the Brookside of the hipster place.
Yeah, for sure. And the price per square foot is much higher than when you get out into the suburbs. You can get the price per square foot is much lower. You get more bang for your buck, but it's not in that prime happening location. You'll get an older home, less garage space, less bedroom count,
but more of a walkable atmosphere.
Yeah, you can walk to the restaurant and walk home rather than hopping in your car and driving to where you need to go. I'd say the type of people that live there are kind of younger professionals that might not have kids yet. So they've gotten out of college, they've entered the workforce, they're buying real estate, they've got good jobs, and maybe a little artsy is the vibe that you'll get there. And then a lot of times once people start having their families, they will move out to the burbs because they want a little more bang for their buck, or they may move a little bit south of Brookside, which brings us up to our next neighborhood we want to highlight, which is Waldo. As you go south, right along this Ward Parkway state line on the map, once you pass Gregory Boulevard, I believe it runs all the way to about 89th Street before it's technically not Brookside, but this next area right in here is Waldo, which is very comparable to Brookside. I think it just, you might have a little bit bigger lots, a little bit, I'd say a little bit more crime actually. It doesn't necessarily show it in the gradient of the map, but you kind of feel it when you're there in Waldo. It's just not quite as nice, I'd say.
Well, and you said bigger too. So as the city grew, it grew from the north and it grew south away from downtown. So like you said, a little newer, a little bigger, but that same crime gradient as you go east, you're gonna kind of run into that same thing. I mean, it's just right above Brookside, so they are kind of similar.
Yeah, they're kind of synonymous. I mean, I think of them as the same area because I live up north, and so Brookside, Waldo are synonymous with one another. But if you're a Brooksider, then you don't want to be confused of living in Waldo.
You don't cross that line.
Right. the people that live there are very particular about if it qualifies. The stats are very similar from a crime perspective, but how about from house prices?
House prices for Waldo, we've got drastically different. In fact, in the last 12 months, this came in at 266 for the average price. But I will say that the highest price was 675. So there's still some juicy, nice places in there, but it's a little more affordable.
And I think that might be reflective of the crime rate, that it, or the feel that it's not quite as nice.
That was over 156 houses too. So
another thing that to circle back to Brookside a little bit, it sits just south of Mission Hills, which is just right south of the plaza. And that's some of Kansas City's most expensive real estate. And so Brookside kind of bleeds into that a little bit. And that's where the trolley trail begins. And so that may be something that you'll experience too, is it just seems a little more affluent in Brookside than it does in Waldo. While we've got the map right in this area, talking about Brookside, if you'll see that as you go west, it kind of clears up a little bit as far as the crime goes as you cross the state line into Kansas. And this area right in here is known as Prairie Village, which is one of Kansas City's most desirable areas as far as an older area that's really charming. They've got a lot of estate-sized lots, acre, 3/4 of an acre lot. Older homes, basically built in like the 40s and 50s. When you talk about the crime rate there, it is much lower than Brookside, where we were coming in at 600 per 100,000 people to experience assault. In Prairie Village, it drops down to 109 actually out of 100,000 people. The 0 out of 100,000 for murder. So if you want to stay safe, just go across the state line, and you go from
rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah, you go from 17 out of 100,000 to 0 in Prairie Village. So very safe area, really charming,
and really expensive, because
I knew there was a catch.
The safer, the more money. But yeah, it's a super nice area. We've got 463 homes that sold in the last 12 months with an average sale price of $640,000. A little pricier, but super nice down there, like you said.
It's a great area, and in fact, if you check our channel, we have a video on Prairie Village specifically. In fact, I think we have 3. We have a map video, a home tour video, and a pros and cons. So dig into the details on Prairie Village, or reach out to us at any time. We can help you with those details. So while we're in this area near Prairie Village, I'm going to zoom out. So Prairie Village is up here in just north of Leawood. So maybe a little more crime if you look at the map, a little orange. But right here, as it turns to yellow, that is one of Kansas City's most expensive, most desirable areas, known as Leawood.
So the price, what it's going to cost you to live in Leawood, in the last 12 months, 532 homes have sold with the average sale price of $806,000.
In fact, in Prairie Village and Leawood, they are taking some of the older homes built in the 40s, knocking them down and building mega mansions, because they're after that lot in that desirable area. They're also building new construction. So if you go into the Leawood video, you'll know that as you go from the north to the south, it gets newer and newer, and there's a lot of new construction going on the south side of Leawood. So you can really get anything that you're looking for there, if it's a home built in the 60s or the 80s, all the way up into the 2020s. I think that price range on average being 800, I think you can get down in the 5s if you're up north, but once you go down south in the newer homes, you're every bit of that 800 price point.
People that live there tend to stay there, that have kids that want to be back in Leawood. I know a lot of people are born and raised in Leawood that want to stay in Leawood, or have moved out because it's expensive, and after they got their career started, found a way to get back into Leawood. It feels like the neighborhoods are very walkable. I wouldn't say it's a super walkable area as far as getting to things. I mean, maybe depending on where you live.
Yeah, because it's a little older, there are a lot of mature trees. On the south side, there are a lot of shopping. I mean, amazing shopping centers. Town center shopping is there with, some of your best, you've got, best restaurants, best grocery stores. If you're looking for a Whole Foods, that's where you're going to find it. If you're looking for, fancy furniture stores like Restoration Hardware, that's where it's going to be. I think it's really high end, and it's people that, have great jobs that, maybe they work for Garmin. Garmin is down in Olathe, but it's adjacent to Leawood. They would be working for a great company. It could be a lot of Cerner employees, which was purchased by Oracle, live in the area. The next neighborhood on the list, Blue Springs, is really a charming area. A lot of lakes in Blue Springs. It's close to the Kansas City sports stadiums. Arrowhead and Kauffman Stadium are close by. And there's a little bit of a gradient to it too, not really reflective so much in this heat map of the crime rate. I think of Blue Springs getting better as you go south also.
Yeah, and Blue Springs is going to be way more affordable too. It's less dense, certainly. Everything we've talked about has been pretty dense, especially the stuff right south of downtown, and even Leawood. But if you get out into Blue Springs, it tends to open up just a little bit, and you can kind of see that on the heat map. There's just not as much going on out there as far as crime, but that's reflected in the in the density also. But anyway, to get into the house prices, in the last 12 months, 887 homes have sold with an average sale price of $334,000. So super affordable, yeah, super affordable. And they have great public schools. Just to get back to like Waldo and Brookside, you're not going to have amazing public schools there. There is going to be some private Montessori, some magnet schools, charter schools, different things like that you can get involved with. But for public schools, like Leawood and Prairie Village are both going to have amazing public school districts, and so is Blue Springs, if you don't want to have to pay for those options.
Yeah. Well, you're already going to pay for it in your taxes.
Right.
Because in the Kansas City, both Kansas and Missouri, you have property tax, and so yeah, that's what goes to pay for those schools. So if you live there, you're going to pay for it. You might as well use it, I suppose. But yeah, so the stats for safety for Blue Springs is 150 people out of 100,000 will be a victim of assault, and only 5 out of 100,000 for murder, and 10 out of 100,000 for robbery. So very low odds. It does happen, but probably after, at 4 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
So if you're in bed like me at 9:30, you're probably perfectly safe. Yeah, I mean, Blue Springs is a great area. It's more of a suburb, similar to, you got Blue Springs and Lee Summit here on the southeast corner. Then you have the Northland, which has Liberty and Park Hill, and then Olathe out here on the southwest corner. Very, very comparable areas that are a little more affordable than when you're right in the mix, right in the city center.
Yeah, and I say Blue Springs, the type of people that choose Blue Springs, either blue collar, white collar. I think there's a good mix of that. And then families, see a lot of families out there that like golf, like boating. I mean, you've got lakes around, nice golf courses, good school districts. So just a really family oriented area with great highway access into Kansas City, because you're right down there at I-70 and close to the sports stadiums.
So yeah, I mean, Blue Springs is a great place to live. And I will just say, before we wrap it up, I would like to just zero in on this map one more time and show you areas to avoid. So obviously these red areas are probably what we should focus on. And this area here is called Northeast. Definitely an area that you probably don't even want your kids, when they are driving their cars, you don't want them going to that area. It's also over here in Kansas City, Kansas. Not as bad as this northeast section, but there's some sketchy areas down there that you don't want to even mess around with. And then lastly, I mean, I think this really dark red is more about density, because you have the plaza in here, which I go to during the day, and it's beautiful. But just alongside this 71, when you come down this highway here where the cursor is, this is 71 highway. All along here to the east of 71 highway is somewhere you really don't want to mess around. I would stay out of those 3 select areas. Otherwise, Kansas City, the entire metro, when you zoom out on this map, is totally safe. You don't have to worry going to any of these areas as long as you stay out of those 3 little hot spots. that are relatively small, smaller than this map makes them look. So on a whole, Kansas City is a very safe place to live. I think it offers a nice balance of affordability, safety, and community spirit. There's a lot of stuff to do in Kansas City. It's a fun place to be. I don't feel at danger anywhere I go in Kansas City. And if you're thinking about moving here, reach out to us anytime. We would love to dig into the details with you, help you get your ducks in a row, see what areas resonate to you, and then give you advice specific to that. So whether you're moving in 2 years or 2 months, reach out to us anytime. We want to be a resource for you.
Yeah, and if you're not moving soon, then just click subscribe and click on this next video and keep watching, and we'll see you over there.